Hey there, and welcome back to Scrap with Penny, where paper meets story. And today we're going to be working on a fall story, and I'm going to be featuring this beautiful Peartree Cut File. This is called Pumpkins in the Leaves, and I've got a sketch figured out, and I have got a photo printed, and I've got some paper pulled. So this is my picture. This is Thanksgiving morning 2024, and my sister and her husband and my two sons and their wives and our 5 family Frenchies, sweet little Gojo, crossed the Rainbow Bridge after this photo. But we all did a little neighborhood turkey trot, and my sister, she even ordered us matching shirts. So they're in different color palettes, but they've all got the same graphic. So this is my picture, and that's going to drive my story. And I'm thinking that I'm going to put it in this chipboard frame. And what I'll do is I'll get an X-Acto knife and I'll cut this here and here. And then I'll have a cute little frame. And then to give it some contrast, I think I'm going to put it on this navy. This is Acorn Lane, Simple Stories, and this is from the 6x8 pad. I got this Acorn Lane in a bundle, and I am excited to work with it. I've got a pretty good sampling of it. Okay, so let's put that to the side, and I'm going to cut away to my sketch now. It is a page maps from May 2025, and the pattern paper is 10 inches wide, and the top piece that's shown in the wood grain is a 7x10, and the little house print is a 3x10. And where you see a row of houses, I'm going to put my cut file as my border. I'm thinking I'm going to put this gingham on the top and this little print on the bottom. It'll be about like that. And then for my background, I'm going to use this plaid. So I think 1 inch of it would show on each side. And then I think on this layout, the bulk of my time is going to be spent backing this cut file. But it was so cute, I couldn't resist. It's from the October release, and you know, I've said before, we get to pick what we work with, and I've also said I'm trying to show you different things, and so I went with a shape this time and not words. And so then where the sketch shows 2 pieces of paper coming from the top, I'm going to go to this tag sheet and pick 2 tags. And then for the journal elements at the bottom, I'm also going to pick 2 tags, and I'm going to invert them, flip them. And I'll just stack them side by side and probably use it as a base for journaling strips. So I also pulled this 3x4 element sheet, and if I were to use it, I would trim into the shape of a tag and put a little hole there, and then pair it with another true tag from the tag sheet. And I could do a tag here, a decorative tag and a journal tag here, or I could keep this in the center and put my tags underneath at the top, in which case I wouldn't use this. So it'll be something I decide as I go along. This mat will be pretty thin, and then I'll use the colors out of this collection to back the cut file. So we've got 2 pumpkins, and then we've got various leaves. So like this is all 1 leaf, so this will be backed 1 color, and then this would be 1 color, and then that would be 1 color. And I'll build, I'm wanting to go with a darker orange that would marry up with this paper. And then on this other pumpkin, I don't know, I love the fairy tale pumpkins, and I love the blue in this line. So I'm kind of leaning toward a fairy tale pumpkin here. And do y'all have those? Do you ever buy them? They are, oh, they're my favorite. So, and of course, you know, they just happen to be called fairy tale. Okay, so what I'm going to do, what I'm going to start with is I'm going to gut my plaid. This plaid is actually Echo Park. The collection is called Fall Fever, and I'll gut it at about 1.75, so I've got a good background, and then I'll go ahead and trim these two pieces of paper, and I'll be back real quick with a solid look at how our layout is going to take shape. I'm gonna just gut my paper real quick, and I thought I would do it on camera in case you're not familiar with that. So if my paper is going to be 10 inches, that means I need 1 inch on each side, and I like to just almost double that for stability. So I'm going to cut this at 1.75, and this over here is the 1 inch mark, and this is the 2 inch mark. So if I come to about right here and start, that'll be accurate. The other thing about giving yourself a generous margin is that if you slightly overcut, you don't have to worry because it's going to be well hidden behind your top layer of paper. So I'm going to come right here, and then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm just going to cut all 4 sides at the 1.75 mark. There are a couple of benefits to doing this. Number one, you preserve the paper that's going to be covered up to use on another project. And number two, it doesn't give you as bulky or as thick of a layout. So if you're wanting to hand stitch, so look, I got 3 of those on the money. And then for the other one, you can just take your scissors and trim it up. So that's how you get a piece of paper, and it is the reason why I keep that clunky old trimmer around. And then when you've got a piece of paper, you can choose to back it or not. I like to back it for stability, so I have this piece of cardstock. I got several of these pieces of cardstock in page kits, and they're not a true 12 by 12, and that's kind of why I don't like to work with them for my bases. So here's our middle, and then here is our center, just roughly, and then we're going to go with this. And I don't need to do this again. I need to trim that down. So it's going to be cute. Feels like fall. Now, if you wanted to, you could back both of these on a little piece of wood grain. And gosh, that sure is tempting. I may have to pull that out and look at it while I'm trimming this up. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my X-Acto knife and trim this out and get my picture matted behind it. So I wasn't brave enough to do this live, but since it did work out, I'll show you how I did it. So I got out my old Creative Memories circle cutting mat and this X-Acto knife, and I always use a metal ruler so you get blade against blade. And so I lined up, you know, right on the white, and what I do is I angle this and cut toward the metal strip so that you don't have a tendency for your blade, your X-Acto knife, to shift. So I came straight this way. I got a good cut that way. And then this, I do need to clean it up a little bit because it did shift. And then, you know, I did the same thing. Let's see. And I put the magnets on to give it some stability. And then of course you have to be super careful not to have your knife jump and cut yourself. So that didn't cut all the way through. There. All clean. If you had a little rough edge, you could get a sander. I'm sure you've got one. And look, you can take a double frame and turn it to a single. Ah, it's perfect. So what I do on these pictures is I measure from about this part of the frame to this part of the frame, and this part to this part, and then I print my picture. And then you can use liquid glue or ATG, or you could even use Scotch tape if you weren't worried about the effects of that on your photo. I always shoot for filling the frame and getting, the most of my photo. So I can actually slide this over a little bit to get more of my son's face. Aren't selfies a great thing? I love the ability to take selfies when we're out and about. And I'm thankful for a son that's 6'2" that has really long arms. Okay, let me put this away. I'm going to tape this down and I'll be back. So I am going to put a little thin wood grain mat behind my pattern paper, and I've got my 12-inch MISTI out and my 1/8 inch acrylic corner. So for the second piece, I just want to get my side margin consistent and come right up to this other piece of paper. And while I've got this out, we can use this to put our pattern paper onto the cardstock. Just coming to the edge. It's ready. And so this is what we'll be looking at. So instead of having a 1-inch margin on each side, I'm going to have a 7/8 margin, which is kind of icky, but we can do it. So a little bit of fraction time. 1/2 is 4/8, and then 3/8, so that's 7/8. And that should give me a consistent margin all the way around. You can double check yourself if you want. I feel good about it. So let me get ATG on this. And so just holding these for stability, I just come right in and bump up solid against the right and the bottom margin. And just like that, it's mounted up with even margins. And then as long as I have this out, we can use it to mat my photo. I'm going to use 3/16 on this. And I'm just going to use ATG for the back, and I use liquid glue to get my photo down. And I'm not attaching it to the paper yet because depending on if I put my tags on the left or the top will determine if these are up on foam. So here's kind of where I am. I did go ahead and decide on this title from the foam, and whenever I use these, I usually just cut them out and put them down as a placeholder. And so let's talk about the photo mat. So this is going to go right here, and if I wanted to do an offset and do a couple of tags over here, I'm really short on room. So kind of the thought was to show one that had a saying on it. Obviously not this one because of the clash of the plaid. But that was kind of what I was going for. But the problem with that is that there's no room to journal. And I think I need to figure out how to get the journaling onto tags up here somewhere because I just don't have a lot of margin down here. So then that kind of takes me back to centering it. And I would, for my part, try and get a somewhat consistent margin on this yellow. And so then that means I could put the tags behind it. And I kind of picked these three. And so that means that I would need to pop this up on foam. And I'll run a strip of foam here so that the tags don't go too far down. And then this will also be up on foam because it'll be backed with paper, and I can run foam behind that easily. And I'll do my journaling on these cards, these tags. And then I pulled some little birds and acorns from the die cut pack, and also a butterfly. Once this gets on here, it's gonna really be the star of the show, and I don't think you need a lot of other little things. So that's kind of what I've decided, is that I need to do top tags and not bottom. I am struggling a little bit with the pink, if I'm completely honest. I don't have a problem with pink per se, but I have a problem with pink when it's not showing up anywhere else. So just real quick, here's our frame. And these are kind of the other choices. You can't really use these because it would be redundant to this. The hearts have the pink in it also. And then you would be repeating brown. That's probably the better choice. Get the pink out. Only because it doesn't appear anywhere else. I'm not bringing in any of the embellishments for this collection that have the pink in it. And the plaid doesn't have the pink in it because this is Echo Park. These are the other choices I had. No, repetitive, same as the frame, won't go with the other plaid, no fox, and I don't see, if I've got the little flowers there, I don't see the need for these flowers. And then there were these blue butterflies, and okay, let me get this to this and foam on the back of this, and I'll be back. So here's what my foam looks like. I just brought a tag over, sorry, and that's what it's going to look like. So that much of it will show. I have my chipboard frame down, and I actually trimmed my tags down a little so that you would just see the pattern of the paper and not a white margin, and I think it's looking cute. I'll put some crochet thread through those loops and maybe even attach some brads to cover it. And I've started backing my cut file. Oh, it's so cute. I still see this kind of as going here, and I'm just going to go one element at a time. So the next thing I'll do is this pumpkin, and then I'll slowly work on the leaves. So I am back, and my cut file is finished. Isn't she pretty? I'm going to go over the papers I used. And when I put the foam on it, I'm not going to put foam right up here, but I'll put foam down here, and I'll place it centered and down enough so as not to cover up this little phrase. And that means my title will be kind of down here at the bottom, and it'll kind of balance from here to up there. So I pulled papers from Pumpkin Spice. I got the green gingham, this green pattern, the yellow dot, and the brown canvas for the stems from that. And then from Simple Stories Cozy Days, I got the green for the leaves. And then from Simple Stories Cider Donuts, I got these two, which are my pumpkins. And for this little red, this is actually from We Are Family. And I think that covers all of the elements. I treated the leaves with the line through them as one kind of leaf. I treated these kind of leaves, this shape, as a different paper. And then I did my maple and my oak leaves. And then this was another kind of leaf, and I pulled in a third green paper for that. So I think the next thing to do is to go ahead and put foam on this, get it down, then I can lay this on top of it, and then I need to deal with my journaling. So it's coming along, and I think this cut file is just precious. So I am back, and a few things have changed, but I am done. So we'll start at the top, and I'll point out that I changed each one of the tags. And what was driving that decision is that when I backed the file, I used two papers from the Cider Donuts, and the white down here in my mind just wasn't working, the white up against the cut file. And so I took the white off, and then I really was left without much Acorn Lane on the page. And I didn't have any repetition going, and I had a lot of disparity in my colors. So I decided to go back to the sketch and center up my title. Now on the sketch, it has a title at the top and the journaling at the bottom, but I flipped that. And so you may recall those two little strips of paper were behind the title. So I went to my Cider Donuts small scale 6x8 pad, and I pulled two patterns, and then on my tags I went back to these patterns for some repetition. So you can see these are the same, and this is the same newsprint as that, and then this plaid is here in this pumpkin. And I think in my mind it actually works now. Before it was kind of like a game of how many papers can you put down. When I removed the white, I thought the best choice for this would be just to continue the gingham, and so I got the gingham down, and then I had wanted to do stitching all along, and I did that tone on tone, and it's color 743. And the other thing I'll say is on these two little square pieces of paper, I used this tearing ruler from Peartree Cut Files, and it's tearing ruler number 2. And I have a haul that's posting on November 4th, and I reveal this ruler, but interestingly enough, I'm using it before that is going to air. So I put my acorns on to get some brown in there, and then I added the brads. I added this winter mint color of brad right here, and I repeated my blue because I've got blue here and I've got blue in the border. And then I brought in this large brown brad that kind of repeats the brown in the acorns, the brown that backs the cut, or that creates the cut file border, and the brown that's in the border. So it feels a lot more cohesive to me, and I'm happy with it. I had to put 2 layers of foam under this because I've got 2 layers of foam under this because there's foam under this. So, you know, when you layer up, you've got to stack. And so you get that nice shadow and a little pop. And then on my tags, I used Aunt Lydia's crochet thread classic 10, and that's a staple I have in my house. And I just got these 2 paper pads out so you could see the difference. Like this is where I started, and this is kind of more where I ended up. And the navy is in the border, and it is here, and I brought it down here. And I mean, to me, it all does kind of work. So on my journaling, I printed it on my Picturemate 400, and I trimmed my tags down. I created a text box in Pages that was 2 by 2, and here's how my journaling looks. I like the journaling on the tags, and it lets you focus on the picture and the cut file and the pretty paper. Let me expand on this a little bit. So I print a test print on this 4 by 6 piece of paper, and then I check my alignment, and if it looks good, then I'll go ahead and tape my tag down and then run it through and pop it off, and that's how I get my journaling right onto the tag. I just realized that was there. This corner had kind of folded up a little and I had glue on it to secure it. So I think that's a wrap, and I do have my acorns up on foam for that little pop. And what I'll say about this tearing ruler is that it feels very dainty to me, and it's not this big jagged look, and so I really like it. And so this is with the same ruler, and I just used different, it's all on the same side, but you can see here this is more jagged and this is more smooth, and so I just altered where I was tearing. Like here, one I tore here and then I tore here. One thing I will say about this cut file is I cut it to the size. You know, when you shop on Peartree, you can either buy the download, which gets you a JPEG, an SVG, and a PNG, or you can buy the file already cut for you by Marie. And if you were to get it from her, it would be this exact size, which is, you know, right about 11 inches. So I think that is going to be a wrap, and this cut file is part of the October release. You know, I've already done my Pearscription and I did my older file, and so this is the October release, and it's called Pumpkins in the Leaves. And I'll have a link to that in the video description. And I hope that you had some fun playing with paper while I did. I just have the biggest mess here behind me. And that's always the sign of a good time, right? So I will clean up and move on to the next story. And I just want to say a quick thank you to my subscribers. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd invite you to hit that button and join our community. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back soon with more layouts, videos, and a little stash busted magic. So please come back and crop with me. Until next time, happy scrapping, and remember, this is where paper meets story. Bye-bye.